Wagwan people, and welcome back. And I hope everyone's blessed. And lately, I've been listening to a lot of trap soul and R&B beats. There's just something with that specific genre where I just feel connected to it at the moment. So I've been expressing myself and getting creative with the way I'm feeling. I've made a few of these trap soul R&B beats recently, and I'm going to be showcasing a lot of them on this channel. The one that I've made today is a emotional R&B beat. Let's not waste any more time and let's get straight into it. When I first started making this R&B beat, I started off with a piano. Now I got this piano from Omnisphere, and this is the preset that I had chosen, ambient space piano. Now these are the notes that I had laid down, and I'm working in the key of F sharp minor, and this is what the piano sounds like. And then once I was happy with that, I added some effects, and then the first effect I added was an EQ, and I low cut it by 165 Hz, and then I added some tape saturation. Now this is chroma tape, which is from Waves. Now I've added this just to add a bit of that tape saturation, and I've also played with the wow and flutter just to give it that tape texture effect. Then after that I've added some reverb. Now I've added this reverb just to add a bit more ambience to the piano. After that I added some pads, and now I've got these pads from Omnisphere, and this is the preset that I had chosen. It's called Fade to Green. Now all I've done here is copied the main chords from the previous piano and just pasted it onto these pads, and this is what the pads sound like. The first effect I added was an EQ, and what I've done here is I've low cut it by 235 Hz, just taking out all the lows, and as you can see right here I've taken everything off just above 2K because I just wanted to focus on the frequencies in the lower mids and the high mids, and after that I added some tape saturation. Now this is Waves J37 tape saturation, and I've just added this just to add a bit more texture and a bit more of that old school like vinyl tape saturation to it. And then lastly I've added some reverb, and I've added this reverb just to add a bit more ambience and a bit more atmosphere to the pads. Now this is what the piano and the pads sound like together now. Once I had bounced the piano and the pads down to their own audio channels, I went ahead and started to add more elements. Now the next sound I added were some more pads, which I also got from Omnisphere, and this is the preset I had chosen, Aramaic Pad 2, and I got this from Textures Playable, and this is what it sounds like. And the first effect I added to that was an EQ. I've taken everything off below 385 Hz, and then I added some reverb. Now I've added this reverb just to add a bit more atmosphere and ambience to the pads. And then lastly I added some direction mixer. Now this direction mixer, what it actually does is it takes both the left and the right signal and moves it anywhere you want to pan it within the spectrum, meaning if you want to pan it right, it's going to take the left and the right signal at the same time and move them both to the right. Now this is what everything sounds like together so far. Next I added some arpeggiated bells which I got from Omnisphere, and this is the preset I had chosen, Wiggling Bow Arp, and this is what it sounds like. Once I was happy with that, I went and bounced it down to an audio and then add more effects to it. And then the first effects that I added was some EQ. Now I've low cut it by 143 Hz, just taking out all the lows. And then in the area of 300 Hz, I've taken out quite a lot just to help clean up this area by taking out a lot of the muddiness, so I'm getting a lot more of a cleaner sound. Next I added some tape saturation. Once again, this is the J37, and then here I've also played with the wow and the flutter just to help give it that tape wobble effect. And then lastly, I've added some direction mixer. Now this is panned to the left by 47 degrees. Now this is what everything sounds like together so far. After that, I added some accents. Now this first accent right here, I got this from the Architecture Volume 1 sound kit, which was made by Troy Fees and Daniel Taylor. All sound kits that I'm using, the link will be in the description box below, so go and check those out. This is what this first accent sounds like. And then the first effect I added was a sound shifter just to pull it back into key, and I've pitched it down by -5 semitones. Next I added some channel EQ and I've low cut it by 424 Hz just to make space for my kick drum and my bass. And then I added some Valhalla shimmer. Now I've added this Valhalla shimmer just to add a bit more atmosphere and ambience to the accent. And then lastly I've added the direction mixer. Now this has been panned 32.5 degrees to the right. Now this accent right here, I got this from the Nuclear Volume 1 sound kit, which was made by Max Shooter and Tri-Freeze, and this is what it sounds like. Now what I've done with this accent, I reversed it and then added some effects, and then the first effect that I added was a sound shifter, and this is also pitched down -5 semitones just to pull it back into key. Next I added some delay. Now I've added this delay just to add a bit more bounce and vibe to the accent, and then lastly I added some EQ. Now with this EQ I low cut it by 476 Hz, just taking out all the lows. Now with this last accent, this is also from the sound kit Nuclear Volume 1, and this is what it sounds like. And the first effect I added was a sound shifter, and this is also pitched down -5 semitones once again just to pull it back into key. Next I added some channel EQ. I've took out everything below 332 Hz. Then I added another sound shifter which is pitched up 12 semitones. Then I added some Valhalla Uber mod, and this is stock settings. Now I've added this just to add a bit of chorus and texture. Then I added some Valhalla shimmer. Now I've added this Valhalla shimmer just to add a bit more vibe and a bit more ambience to the accent. And then lastly I've added the direction mixer, and as you can see it's panned 40.5 degrees to the right. Now this is what everything sounds like together so far. Once I was happy with that, I went and added some vocals. Now these vocals I added myself. Now don't get it twisted, man can't sing still, man just tried a thing. I used the app called Veloco. So what I done was I put a 16-bar loop into my phone and just let that play over and just recorded some vocals through this Veloco app. All these are the vocals that I recorded. So this is the first vocal take that I had chosen, and it's in reverse, but I'll pull it back to normal so you can hear what it sounded like originally. I know, don't watch that though. I put it back in reverse, and then the first thing I added was an EQ, and as you can see I've taken everything off below 527 Hz, and then I've taken everything off above 6K. Next I added some compression. Now this is the SSL compressor from Waves. Now I've used this just to help balance the dynamics of the vocal. Next I added some vocal transformer, and I've pitched it up by 12 semitones. Then I've changed the formant, so I've gone down by -9. So what this formant does is like it gives it a deeper tone. It's like it changes the pitch but still keeps it in key. And then next I added some doubler. This is stock settings, and I've added this just to add a bit of chorus and texture to the vocals. Next I added some meta flanger. I've added this just to give the vocal a bit more modulation, movement and some texture. And then I added another EQ. Then I've low cut it even more, everything below 13K, just taking out more of those lower mids. Then I added some reverb. Now with this reverb, I just wanted to add some ambience and some atmosphere to the vocal. And then lastly, I added some delay. And these are my settings for my delay. Now this is what the vocal sounds like now. Now with the following vocals here, I've added the same effects, just that there's slight variations. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll just show you the ones where I've changed things just to give the vocals like a different feeling and a different texture. On this particular vocal, what I've done different here is I've added some Valhalla Uber mod, and these are my settings, and I've just added this just to add a bit of chorus and a bit of texture. And then with the vocal transformer, instead of it being at -9 like my previous vocal, this is at -4. And then I've added some direction mixer, and it's panned plus 48 degrees to the right. Now this is what it sounds like with all the effects on it now. And this one right here is the last vocal take, and this is what it sounds like. And the first thing I done with that was I put it in reverse, and then the only different effect I added here was some direction mixer, and this one's panned 46 degrees to the left. Now this is what everything sounds like together so far. So once I was happy with those melodies in the vocals, I went ahead and added some percussion loops. Now these percussion loops I got from Splice, and this is what they sound like. And the only effect that I added to that was some EQ. Now this is a band pass and narrow EQ, so I've taken off quite a lot of the lows and a lot of the highs, and my main focus is in this area right here, which is the high mids. Now this is what everything sounds like together so far. So the next thing I added after those perc loops was some bass. Now I got this bass from Alchemy, and this is the bass I had chosen, 80s hard bass, and this is what it sounds like. And the first effect I added to that was some EQ. So with this EQ, I took out everything below 110 Hz. So I had taken out all of the subparts of the bass. And then next I added some multi-band EQ, and it's this one called F6 RTA, which is from Waves. So I'm going to play and watch this area right here as it plays. As you can see around this area here, it's always been dynamic, it's always fluctuating. Now I've done that because with the previous EQ I took out all the sub part of the bass, And what I've done is I've added a sub underneath this bass. So with the previous EQ and also adding this multi-band compression is just to help control and create space for when the sub part comes in. Lastly, I added some dimension expander. Now I've added this just to make the bass a little wider. Next, I added some sub. Now with this sub, I got it from the sampler. Now this is just a pure sine wave and I haven't done anything to it. This is just stock settings and this is what it sounds like. So with this sub, it just sits right underneath the main bass and it helps thicken it up and just makes the main bass sound a little thicker and a bit more powerful. And then the only effect I added was some EQ. So as you can see with this EQ, I've taken everything off below 30 Hz. Now the reason for me doing this on a sub is because on my speakers and on most speakers, they can't reproduce that sort of energy going below 30 Hz anyway. It's only on big like sound systems that can do that, and most of the time it's just blowing out air and that's just taking up a lot of energy within the mix. So even though it's a sub, I'm still trying to create space within the mix so I can get a louder mix. And then everything above 148 Hz I've taken off because this is just a pure sine wave. I don't want no high frequency energy whatsoever because I'm already getting that from my bass. I only want this sub bass to sit right underneath my main bass. So now this is what everything sounds like together so far. Once I was happy with everything, I went ahead and added some drums. Now the first drum sound I added was a snare. Now all my drum sounds, they are from Splice, and this is what it sounds like. Now, as you can see right here in the piano roll, I've utilized the velocity on the snares. Now, the reason why I've done this was because I wanted to add a human feel and a unique bounce to the snares. After that, I added another snare just to help layer the main snare and back it up even more to help it cut through the mix. And this is what the second snare sounds like. Now, this is what both snares sound like together now. Next, I added some hi-hats. Now, as you can see in the piano roll, I've utilized the velocities on the hi-hats, and I've done this just to give the hi-hats a human feel and a unique bounce, and this is what the hi-hats sound like. And then lastly, I added a kick drum, and this is what the kick drum sounds like. Now, as you can see here, I've already gone ahead and laid out the beat. So this part right here is just the intro. Now the intro is only 8 bars, and in the intro there's the perc loops, the piano and the pads, and then after the intro, when it drops, we've got the drums and the bass that come in with the perc loops, and then it's just the piano. And then after that, on this section, some of the vocals come in, and then after that, on this whole section right here, so this whole 16 bar here, everything comes in, all the instruments. After all of that, there's this 8-bar breakdown where it's just the percussion loops and the 2 pads and some of the vocals and the bass, and then it just repeats itself again until the end. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it so we can catch a vibe and a feel for the track. That's the end of the tutorial, and I really enjoyed making this one, and I hope you guys feel the same. But more importantly, I hope that you've learned something. So please like, please share, and please subscribe. And until next time, peace out.